Yo. Hello. Yo, what's up, Montana? Welcome in. It's Nuanez Now, 1029 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Yo, what's up, Montana? Welcome in. Nuanez Now, 1029 ESPN Radio, also streaming on 1029ESPN.com as well as the ESPN MT app. I'm Colter Nuanez, coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, the only Bears that should be in your garbage. Fun slate for you today here on this Tuesday. For most of the offseason, we've had Samuel Akem joining us on Wednesdays. Well, now we got Sam Herder, who's normally our lead guy on Wednesdays, back in the fold since it's football season again. So Sammy is going to be one day earlier. He will be coming to you on Tuesdays here on Nuanez Now. We'll also have our full slate of prep coverage as well. Today, Peter Hamill will help us debut our Vertical Rays Class AA Player of the Week. Obviously, we don't have a Player of the Week this week, so we're just going to talk about some of the storylines from across AA football. We'll also hear from a couple of great Montana State Bobcats who played at Billings West. I think that's one of the biggest storylines in Class AA this year is the retirement, or not, I guess the resignation of Rob Stanton. He's retiring as the head football coach at Billings West, but he's taking the head track and field job at Dickinson State. So this is an interesting deal to go from the high school ranks to the college ranks. Stanton gets most of his coverage here on this channel as the football coach at Billings West, but he's also an outstanding track and field coach. I think Billings West won like 9 state championships between boys and girls track under Stanton's guidance. So he's done a great job in both those realms. And now going to Dickinson State, that's pretty cool for him, a good opportunity for him. But this will be his last season at Billings West, and West is one of the favorites. So West had 6 players on Montana State's national championship team a year ago, I guess last football season, including the Dowler twins, Taco Dowler, Caden Dowler. The Dowler twins are captains at Montana State, and they were the representatives for the Bobcats at their press conference yesterday. So I made sure to ask each of them about Rob Stanton. So we'll play those quotes for you, and we'll also talk AA football with Peter Hamill. We'll also hear from Bobby Kennedy, Brent Vegan, Kaylee Ayat, Justin Lamson about the upcoming matchups for Montana and Montana State. That's all just in hour number 2. But hour number 1, we'll get things kicked off with our good buddy Samuel Akem, a little bit of an elongated version of Inside the FCS. We'll also have some free Taglieri for you. Tag Tuesday every Tuesday here on 1029 ESPN Radio. That's your show outlook here. Appreciate you for tuning. Make sure you get that streaming ability in your life, 1029ESPN.com or on the ESPN MT app. And please subscribe to our YouTube or follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast network as well. Helps us track who's coming in from where. It's certainly always good to know we got people listening. It's fun because our podcast analytics, it gives you like a map of where everybody's tuning in from. And you know, I'd say 90% of people are in America, and probably 90% of those people are in the Pacific Northwest, and probably a good majority are in Montana. But we do have people that are listening in from Alaska, Australia. There's a couple military bases that we get a couple hits from. Like there's one in Germany, there's one in Turkey. So that's always fun. And so it's fun for us, but it's also important for us, for our clients, our advertisers. So please subscribe to all of our various media channels. Samuel Akem has been in the media now for a couple of years, and he's really blossomed into one of the top analysts. And I'm excited to see how Sammy continues to grow with us, how his channel continues to grow. We talked about this morning, but the news of the week here in the FCS has nothing to do with football. It has to do with the massive changes that are coming on the national level. Our good friend Sam Herder, that no longer works for Hero Sports because Hero Sports no longer exists. BetMGM is sunsetting Hero Sports effective immediately. That's a huge void for FCS football coverage. Sam has worked there at Hero Sports covering the FCS on a national level for 8 years. He's done a tremendous job. He is going to stake out on his own. He's going to start his own Sam Herder Sports Patreon page. So if you'd like to continue to follow his writing and his podcasting and all that stuff, you should go check that out. We also, though, are going to stay partnered with Sam Herder. I've loved working with Sam. I think he's a very, very sharp guy. I think he's got great intel and intellect when it comes to the FCS. I think he's a heck of a reporter. So he has joined us the last 2 seasons as part of our FCS national coverage. And the FCS Herd with Sam Herder will return starting tomorrow during the 4 o'clock hour here on Nuanez Now. Also, the Mondak Show, which is a new property that Sam, as well as his partner Brad Jones, have formed. This is a podcast/radio show all about Montana, Montana State, North Dakota, South Dakota, and South Dakota State. North Dakota State used to be in that bundle as well, but the Mondak Football Show has been a podcast that's been going on for a couple months, and we have also acquired that to be a part of our networks as well. So you can find the Mondak Football Show on the Skyline Sports Podcast Network. You can also find the Mondak Football Show Radio Edition here on ESPN Radio. So Sam will continue to work with us. You'll hear from him on Nuanez Now. You'll hear from him on the Mondak Football Show on Fridays on ESPN Radio. And you can also check out that podcast as well. So looking forward to continuing to partner with Sam, but certainly thinking about him because it's a brutal move that occurred there with Hero Sports going away. So bummer for him. But I'm interested to see how much that impacts what Samuel Akem's doing, because he certainly talks about the Big Sky with us here on the radio and on his channels, but he also talks about the FCS at large. And Sam's going to keep doing it, but Samuel, I think, it's going to elevate his stuff too, because I mean it's going to make his platform even more necessary and popular. So bummer that this happened, but from our seat, we'll continue to hear from Sam Herder weekly on Nuanez Now, and you'll get to hear his Mondak Football Show here on ESPN Radio starting this week as well. So very much looking forward to all of that. Without further ado, here is Mr. Akem. Samuel Akem joining us here on Nuanez Now, and he's a busy guy these days. Daily show rolling, so you can check that out on the YouTube, and he'll still be doing his normal stuff like Akem's analysis and the Deep Ball podcast as well. And you, of course, can find him here on Inside the FCS. We've been recording these on Tuesdays. We're actually going to play them on Tuesdays now. We've been having Sammy on Wednesdays, but now Sam Herder back in the fold with us, so we will have him as our lead guy on Wednesday. Sammy will be our lead guy on Tuesday. So I
get demoted for the best of the best, so it is what it is.
No, you get promoted because the earlier in the week, the better, man. And that'll give us one more day for people to listen to the pod and all that sort of stuff. And plus, people want your reactions and all that, man.
Yeah.
They want to know as early as they can, what do we think of what's going on?
Absolutely.
On the Sam Herder note, we have to say we're very sorry for our good friend for Hero Sports going by the wayside.
Their loss.
I mean, that is definitely their loss. And I was like stunned when he told me this.
I got to think. I would think there would be other publications that are probably like, if we're not in the FCS space, given this guy's a free agent, should we be in the FCS space? Should we carve out a space for him? Because he's certainly got a big enough fan base to where, it would probably make sense for a lot of companies to see if they could bring him on,
We are certainly exploring it. And Sam will continue to join us here on Nuanez Now on Wednesdays. We'll also have the Mondak Show on the ESPN Radio on Fridays. And we also will have the Mondak, the podcast of the Mondak Show on our podcast network as well. So 3 ways to find Sam. And I know he's going to figure out a way to carve out some stuff as well. He's got his Patreon and his Sam Herder Sports going too. So I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah.
But certainly you can still keep finding him collaborating with us. So we're excited about that. But a bummer that that's sort of going away because, man, Hero Sports has been a great resource. Me and you go on there all the time, right? I'm listening to all that stuff. I'm reading all that stuff. It's a great resource. So
great resource.
I'm sad that it's gone, man.
Sam is the FCS to FBS transfer, the FCS to FCS transfer. I can go on. All the information that Sam Herder provided for FCS fans, and he's still going to continue to provide through his Patreon and his other channels. Phenomenal, man. He's the best in the business for a reason, and the respect that he garnered yesterday, all the adoration, that's not for no reason. Everybody knows what his impact is on FCS football.
All right, so let's start with, here we are, game week.
Yes.
And what do you think of – we've only kind of touched on this, even though I think this is actually a huge storyline. What do you think of the fact that all of the teams in the Big Sky besides Idaho State are playing conference games to open this 2026 football season?
You said Idaho State. Who's Idaho State open with?
Idaho State plays VMI. So there's 13
VMI,
teams in the Big
yep.
Sky. So there's 6 Big Sky games this weekend, and then the only team that has like an off week is Idaho State. But they're using it to their advantage. They get their first home game to open a season against a D1 opponent. It says 2005. That's crazy. They haven't had a home opener against a D1 in 21 years.
You said, what do I think about that?
Yeah, what do you think of just the fact that everybody's playing conference games?
It's exciting. I think conference play is obviously exciting. mean, I don't know if I have any drastic thoughts about it. I think the 9 conference, or what is it, 9? Yeah, 9 conference games is exciting. I think that's a good change, especially if you play in a good conference. I think playing more conference games is good for your ultimately your conference getting into the playoffs and you guys having more ranked wins and things like that. But I don't know if it really matters. Everything will shake out in the end. But I think it's exciting. Tough for Idaho State, but they do get a less than stellar VMI squad to start the season, so I think it's going to be good for them as well.
My only real thought on it is that I think that if you are opening your season and you're a contender and you have like a quote unquote cupcake game, like a game that you are expected to win,
Montana State, Utah Tech.
But if you have that, it's a non-conference game. You can approach that in an interesting way. Like you can approach that by saying, "Hey, we're going to go down here. We're going to play into our depth. We're going to bring 70 guys on the trip, and we're going to play all of them.
Yeah,
and we'll figure out a way to win. But it might not be the smoothest, cleanest, whatever.
Yeah."
The fact that it is a conference game, I think you're going to want to go down there if you're Montana State and kick their ass. Like it's the same thing with UC Davis going to Portland State. Like Portland State's expected to be one of the worst teams in the country. That's a non-conference game. I think you can do all sorts of different things where you're, I'm not saying coaches like to mess around or whatever. I just think you manage the game differently. When it's a conference game, like you got to have a conference mentality. I think you have to go win those games.
Does point differential necessarily matter though in conference games?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I just think that you're going to be a little bit less lenient and a little bit less experimental in the way that you approach stuff, right?
That's fair.
If you're the Grizz, for example, and you have Central Washington coming into town,
wow.
You know that you can do all sorts of stuff. Like you can see, okay, here's all these guys we know they're dudes. We'll get them some reps. So we're all going to get all these other guys some reps. Let's put our third safety in a tough situation. Let's put him in man coverage on the post on a 3rd and 7. You know what I mean? Like
you got Southern Utah, they can beat you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to be doing that, right? Like Bobby Houck was the master of this, where the first game when it was at home, every dude that dressed would play. Yeah. Like you'd play 80 guys in your home opener. And like a couple years ago against Butler, I harken back to, right? Like they played everybody on the roster in that game.
Yep.
And they win 35-24, something like that. And people are like, well, what the heck? Butler on scholarship? Why? But then you look at it, you're like, well, they're playing into their depth. They're playing into their depth. I don't think that's going to be the case on Saturday in Missoula for sure. But I also think this with a lot of these games, I just think you're going to have a little bit more of a sharp attitude and a little bit more of like, we got to go get this done and be sharp and execute well and maybe not play into our depth as much.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a fair assessment. I think you don't want to play around, especially considering, for some of these people, like these games are tougher games. A lot of times in the non-conference, you're getting a Drake, you're getting a Butler, you're getting a Central Washington, you're getting somebody like a VMI, like Idaho State has. Like you're getting somebody like that who you probably can mess around with. But not only is it a conference game, so you probably want to tighten things up a little bit, but also some of these games are tough, like Eastern Washington, Northern Arizona. That's genuinely a tough game. The spread is 2.5. So it's really anybody's game, to be honest. So games like that are especially interesting. Another thing that is important about this week 1 being conference games is or week 0, I guess. It's still week 0. So no ball has been played. It's going to be rusty. And given that, you also want to make sure that you're buttoned up and you got things, you got everything tightened. Your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Is what I'm trying to say.
And I also think that having it, I think you can get into that portion of your non-conference schedule where you are maybe going through some growing pains. We're seeing what guys, but I just think it heightens the urgency right now. So I actually wonder if it heightened the urgency for teams across the league when it comes to their fall camps, because then maybe in the next couple of weeks when you have Central Connecticut State and Drake and all these others on the schedule. Now you can maybe do what those.
Chill on Central Connecticut State. I'm not a huge NEC fan, but chill on those Central Connecticut State boys. They're back-to-back NEC champs, man, and they've been in the playoffs.
Well, and they'll be smart, and they'll be well-coached and all that. So, anyways.
I said this yesterday. If you're a South Dakota, you honestly want to start the season with the Central Connecticut State. They're not a slouch. But you got a lot of question marks at South Dakota, so you're going to really get decently tested, but also you get some good competition for your players. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Samuel Akem joining us here on Nuanez Now 102.9 ESPN Radio. You had a tidbit that you were commentating on both your daily show as well as on social media, and that is that one of the best defensive players in the country, Lance Rucker, suffered an injury at North Dakota. We both really like Rucker. We think he's a really good player. how impactful is this injury, do you think, for North Dakota? How do you think that influences sort of their projections as a team?
I think it's a decently impactful injury because you think about what they did, what he did alone in that playoff game against Tennessee Tech last year, and say what you want about Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech was 11-1 going to the playoffs, and they had won the conference. So you're talking about a conference champion right now. North Dakota went to Tennessee Tech and absolutely wrecked that game. We followed Kakoa Visperis while he was at Eastern Washington. Kakoa Visperis did not even look like the same player. I think a large reason for that was because he had Lance Rucker rushing at him, who had, I think, 3 sack fumbles. He had at least 2 sack fumbles, but he wrecked the game. Lance Rucker was the reason that game looked the way it did. North Dakota ended up winning by multiple scores, and they went on to the next round. But, I mean, he is that type of player. Now, I think he did get a sack at Missoula, but he didn't necessarily wreck the game in Missoula when they came to Missoula. But, I mean, 11.5 sacks last year, over 10 tackles for loss. He's just a really, really good player. He's a Buck Buchanan watch list player for a reason. Now, they do have another edge rusher. I'm blanking on his name right now, but they do have another edge rusher on the other side of him that I think is going to, and I think defensively they're going to be able to hold up decently well. But obviously, he's an NFL prospect, so that injury is going to hurt anybody in the country.
Yeah, and I think that North Dakota's like right in that range of maybe not being like a top tier national championship contender, but I think that they're definitely like a playoff like team that could go make a push in the playoffs. And losing one of your best defensive guys certainly it does not help them.
Now,
no doubt about it.
I remember when the whispers first started coming out that it was rumored, maybe is he out for the season? Is he out? He's only out he's out. Any time missed is too much time missed, especially for a senior. But he is projected, at least Coach Schmidt said yesterday in his press conference that, they think he can come back mid-October. So, if you look at North Dakota's schedule, which I don't have it right in front of me, but I went through everybody's schedule throughout the offseason. North Dakota's schedule is very, very cupcakey throughout the middle of the beginning of the season. I think their toughest game is Nebraska in their non-conference. But outside of that, I think they could really be like 6-1 before they really get to the bulk of their schedule. Now, the biggest part of their schedule is the back half, but they can. They don't necessarily need him in the early part of the schedule either, which I think is good.
It's true. I got their schedule right in front of me. Long Island, that's probably a win. St. Thomas at home, win. At Portland State, that's probably a win. At Nebraska, that's probably a loss. And then you're at Indiana State to start conference play. So that's a 4-1 start. Then you got Murray State. That's 5-1. Northern Iowa, I'm a little bit mysterious.
6-1. That's why I said 6-1.
6-1 for sure. But then South Dakota State, South Dakota, Youngstown State, Illinois State. There's your gauntlet. You get the 4 best teams in the Missouri Valley in a row. So I think you better hope you're 6-1 because you might have a tough slate there for that next month. But definitely interesting. Okay, so I've been meaning to ask you this. I guess 2-part question. How many teams do you think could actually win the national championship this year in the FCS?
Let me look. I got my Redshirt Sports poll pulled up right here, and this isn't the end all be all.
We know there's 2 for sure, right? Montana State, South Dakota State.
I think Montana could win it.
Montana win one is a question.
I think Montana could win it. I want to see what Illinois State looks like. I didn't have them on my top 4. They are top 8 for me. I think I would say 4 to 5 teams. What would you say?
UC Davis one of those teams?
I need to see the quarterback. I need to see the quarterback.
Yeah. Is Tarleton State one of those teams?
I need to see Tarleton State. They're talented and they recruit well, but they lost Victor Gabales. They lost a running back. They lost receivers. They lost a lot of talent. I just need to see them before I say anything definitive about Tarleton State. But I think a healthy 4 to 5 teams,
Who else is in it? Do you believe the Grizz could actually make a run to win a national championship?
I genuinely do think Montana could make a run at the national championship. I think defensively, I'll have to, just like I'm saying, as an analyst, I want to see it. I try to analyze throughout the offseason, and we can look at numbers and we can look at all this stuff. And let's just play some games. But I do think Montana could. I want to see what the defense looks like. But I just think back to what Montana did last year. And I think they're equally as talented, maybe not as talented defensively in terms of the players that they got, but they are very talented defensively. They just got to put it all together. But, Montana had Montana State on the ropes at home. And they played a very competitive game on the road before the momentum got the best of them. But, they are not that far off if you think about where that Montana – they were 13-2 and they lost to the Cats. So I don't think it's a stretch to say Montana can genuinely win a national championship. It just is tough for them because the person you're always going to have to see is your rival. And you're going to have to beat them at least once in the regular season and probably in the postseason as well.
Well, and your take that we need to see all these teams is so spot on, right? Like we've seen the Grizz a bunch during the offseason because we live here in Missoula, so like that's an advantage for us. But like the only two teams that you actually know for sure who's coming back and who's doing what and who's expected of what are Montana State and South Dakota State. Like
Absolutely.
They know who their quarterbacks are, they know who their defense is going to be built around, they know what their identity is going to be. Now, can they go do it? Can they stay healthy? Can they execute it? But like Illinois State, I have no idea. Like, what are they going to look like on offense without all those dudes? I have no clue. You know, UC Davis. Like, is Jackson Collick good? Like, is he good enough? Is that going to be the guy first and foremost?
I believe in everything around UC Davis. I just don't know who the guy is going to be.
No doubt. As we talked about, and as I wrote, I'll have a quarterback story on Skyline Sports on Wednesday, just about the arc of quarterbacks in the conference. And that's one section that I wrote about, was just about how over the last 10 years, Tim Plow has coached Case Cookus, Jake Mayer, and Miles Hastings. All three of those guys were 4-year starters who were record setters, 10,000 yard.
2 of the 3 are playing professional.
Exactly. And actually, I think all 3 of them are.
Is Hastings?
Case Cookus is still playing for the Birmingham Stallions of the UFL. He played with you for the Philly,
Stars,
right?
Yeah.
For the Stars.
Mayer's in the CFL.
Mayer is a starting quarterback in the CFL. And Hastings is playing for, I think, the Red Blacks. He's definitely in the CFL, though.
Hastings?
Yeah, he's a backup, but he's in the CFL.
Okay.
So 3 pros in a row.
Yeah.
You know, basically, Tim Plow's only had 3 quarterbacks besides when he had his foray up to Boise State.
And Pinnock just got named the starter at Washington State. So,
I mean, so Tim Plow has basically produced 3 All-Americans, and then the Big Sky Freshman of the Year, who's now at a well, I guess, is Washington State still a power conference school?
No.
I don't know.
No.
At FCS school, though. But in Tim Plow, I believe, I guess is what I'm saying. Like he told us at the kickoff, and his quote was great. He said, "Hey, what I was taught as a quarterback and what I have been teaching as a quarterback's coach, I truly believe in, and I believe if I have my guy, I'm just going to make him into a really good player." And I love the confidence.
And I believe in Tim Plow. So, hey.
No doubt. So Davis could be right there for sure. Charleston State, I agree. We got to see what's up with them. And then everybody in that next tier, whether it's Youngstown State, South Dakota, North Dakota, Rhode Island, I just have no idea.
Even maybe Villanova.
Villanova. I lean towards all those teams, though, not being actual teams that could win the championship, but I do think they could have an influence on the result of who wins the championship.
Probably 4 maximum. Probably 4 teams who can win it maximum. You know, Montana State, South Dakota State, and then there's probably one more. Who is that? And maybe there's not one more. Maybe it's only the 3, Montana State, South Dakota State, and Montana. I mean, there's not a lot. And that's the thing, is you think there's more contenders than there are. Tim Rosario of FCS Football Central wrote an article last year, and it perfectly laid it out that there are not that many contenders. You may think there's a ton of contenders in FCS football. There are not. And it's probably the same thing this year. Although NDSU is not there, that doesn't mean you automatically jump into the contender bucket. You don't. You're still on the outside looking in.
Well, and Samuel Akem joining us here on Nuanez Now. For those that say, well, that's got to be bad for the subdivision, here's the thing. There was only one contender for most of the last 15 years. And I shouldn't say that. For about 10 years, there was one contender. It was North Dakota State. And their only rival was James Madison. And when James Madison left, then you're like, well, it's NDSU versus everybody.
And South Dakota State's like, oh, we want to win now.
South Dakota State rises up, and all of a sudden there was 2 teams that could win it. And then Montana State kept building, and now there's 3. So actually, if you say, 3 is not that competitive of a division, well, it's more competitive than it was.
Absolutely.
There was a moment in time. I mean, North Dakota State won freaking 8 out of 9, man. Like, there was a time when it was them, and that was it, and that was all. So I do actually think that it's maybe a little bit more wide open than it was. I think that's good
absolutely.
For the subdivision. So North Dakota State's gone now. We made a big deal of this when that initially happened, but it hasn't been that much of a talking point now that the season is on the horizon. Have you thought about that? Like, just the fact that, to me, the Missouri Valley seems like when we just went through North Dakota's schedule, the fact that there's not a North Dakota State waiting somewhere, in October or November, it's just weird. And I also think it's like a huge opportunity. Like, I do think there's a chance for everybody thinks South Dakota State's is going to be the team that dominates that league, but I think there actually is a chance for others, though, to rise up too. Now that there's not this juggernaut that sits atop the conference.
Maybe. And maybe NDSU. Yeah, maybe we haven't talked about NDSU enough, but I feel like the reason that it's not getting more news than it is, NDSU not being in the league now, is because we've kind of talked about it here and there throughout the offseason. Obviously, the headline when it first happened was really big. We all talked about it. But I feel like, at least on my channel, my show, I've talked about it pretty consistently over the course of the offseason. So I feel like it's not that big of a deal right now as well, And then with the South Dakota State point, like, yeah, I don't know. I just genuinely think the talent at South Dakota State right now, from what it looks like, just looks way far superior than the other teams in the
Sure.
conference. So maybe there's not an NDSU waiting, but in my opinion, I say there's a South Dakota State waiting. Like, you're all going to have to see them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about NDSU leaving the conference that I think really benefits the Missouri Valley that a lot of people haven't really talked about. Yes, NDSU leaving the FCS is ultimately a damper on the rest of the FCS incrementally. But in the grand scheme of things, now in the Missouri Valley, everybody has to play everybody. So there's no ducking, there's no dodging. We will see you eventually, and we will have to decide who the better team is. So I do appreciate that for the MVFC as well.
Inside the FCS, probably presented by Paradise Falls of Missoula. We'll take a quick break, come back, and keep on talking FCS. We'll focus a little bit more on the matchups that will play out in the Big Sky Conference. We'll see you on the other side. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. It's Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Welcome back. You're listening to Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio. You can also always stream us, 1029ESPN.com, and also get the ESPN MT app in your life as well. I am Colter Nuanez. I am coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, the only Bears that should be in your garbage. Samuel Akem joins us weekly. We're moving it to Tuesdays. He'll be our lead hour each Tuesday. More on Inside the FCS right now with Samuel Akem. All right, let's dive into the Big Sky Conference slate then, and get started on Friday night with Idaho playing at Cal Poly. I actually think this is I think there's like three games that are good games this first week, like that could be sort of like revealing games.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this one. I think it's Eastern Washington at Northern Arizona, and
Yes.
I think it's Southern Utah at Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the first game. It's a huge opportunity for both these schools, right? They're going to roll out the red carpet for Cal Poly. That new facility is going to be on full display with John Madden's name right on it.
Yep.
They got some optimism with Tim Skipper as a new head coach in the fold, but they also haven't been very good the last couple of years. For Idaho, it's an enormous start to the year because Idaho, like, they can't afford to go backwards for 2 years.
Nope.
Like you could talk about Jason Eck leaving and taking all your best players with you. Okay, that excuse is fine, and I don't even think it's an excuse. That's reality.
Yeah.
But you can't let that go for multiple years in a row, especially if you're the type of recruiter that Thomas Ford is projected as and largely considered. So
Yeah.
I just think, who's a bigger game for, though, Idaho or Cal Poly?
I think it's a bigger game for Idaho because Cal Poly hasn't been good. And Cal Poly, relatively speaking, in FCS circles, doesn't really have a name brand. Idaho and the Kibbie Dome most certainly have a name brand. Now, I know the game's not being played in the Kibbie Dome, but Idaho, when you think about Idaho, you think about the Kibbie Dome. Like, Idaho is a name brand. Idaho has been good, with Jason Eck. They've been able to win football games. They've been up there. They've made the playoffs. Cal Poly, we can't really say that much for them. They haven't really been to the playoffs. They haven't really been a threat, contender is a joke to mention contender and Cal Poly in the same sense. But, they've been there. So I think when you think about Idaho and Cal Poly, it certainly means more for Idaho, especially considering what they looked like last year. 4-8 last year, not good. Losing games that they probably shouldn't have lost. You got to right the ship, and right now on this Friday night is a perfect opportunity for you to show how you can right the ship.
Yeah, it's funny because you're right. In the last 10 years, Cal Poly has not been any sort of a contender, but they were in the mix for the playoffs in the
conference.
2000s. In the 2000s through the early 2010s, they won the conference in 2012. They made the playoffs again two other times after that. And they had made the playoffs in the early Cal Poly came to Washington Grizzly Stadium and beat the Grizz in the playoffs when I was in college.
Wow.
I think it was my freshman year of college, 2005. And so they have been competitive. To me, it's crazy that they decided to go away from the triple option. That's not crazy.
No.
When they went away from the triple option, though, everybody thought that was going to be this thing that sparked them. They're like, oh, San Luis Obispo is amazing, and California is great, and they can be able to recruit all these dudes. And, it's the same concept as, the upward momentum of Tarleton State or Abilene Christian. People said, well, they're in Texas. They'll be able to recruit great guys. That's been true. For Cal Poly, going to a traditional style offense and trying to recruit those guys out of California, it just hasn't panned out. And I actually think it's sort of odd. I thought they would be at least okay by this point moving on from the triple option, and then it just hasn't been true.
No, and what I think about is, okay, if I have a UC Davis and a Cal Poly offer, where am I probably going to go? If I got a Sac State and a Cal Poly offer, where am I probably going to go? If I got an NAU and a Cal Poly offer, where am I probably going to go? And you can go down the line with the FCS, with the Big Sky Conference alone, and you get to the Idaho States. It's like, okay, I might lean Cal Poly. You get to the Eastern Washington. It's like, okay, we got to have a conversation. But for a lot of the top 5 or 6 teams in the Big Sky that you could name, it's like, it's not even a question. I'm going to UC Davis, I'm going to UC Davis, Montana State, Idaho, NAU, Sac State, UC Davis. Obviously, Sac State no longer Big Sky, but I'm going to all those schools before I'm going to Cal Poly. So yeah, maybe they search from the triple option. Maybe you think it can be able to recruit better. Yeah, they're in California. They're in a beautiful spot, but also it still is Cal Poly. Also, too, it's a technical school. So you got to consider that when you think about going to Cal Poly as well.
See, I've thought about this, though. I think that should make your recruiting easier. It does. I shouldn't say easier, more streamlined.
Yes.
Because it's the same thing as recruiting at Stanford or the same thing as recruiting at Notre Dame. You just can't recruit guys that can't get in there.
Yeah.
But then you just don't waste your time recruiting guys that can't get in there. You just pick okay, let's take the top 100 California prospects, just go through and look at their transcripts and say, okay, here's the 20 guys that go to Cal Poly. Let's go recruit those guys. Let's start there.
Yeah, but what if those 20 guys suck, Colter?
Well, you'd like to think that if they're a top 100 guy in California, they don't suck.
But, you said top 100. You said top 100.
Yeah. Well, here's the other problem, though, is that Cal Poly they're not bad because their guys suck. They're bad because they don't know how to win. They don't know how to come together as a team.
It's a mentality. But winning, you realize this once you get deep in sports, and you understand this, Colter. Winning is much more a mentality than it is like coaching and like doing it.
I mean, Cal Poly, since they moved to running a spread offense, they had Ty Diefenbach, who chose them over UCLA. They've had this is just quarterbacks. They've had
Heward from Washington.
The Sam Heward, who's a 5-star. I mean, he was a top 10 quarterback recruit in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Kelly, who was one of the top quarterback recruits in the state of California, and a guy that could have gone to Fresno State. And all those guys have just been nothing. I mean, they've and so it's not just about it's about figuring out a way to put those guys in position to succeed, be able to come together, know how to win. I also think the number one thing, and this is why they always said they ran the triple option, is the offensive line. The offensive line hasn't. I mean, we haven't even considered talking about a single offensive lineman from Cal Poly for years. Like that. That's an issue because when you're talking about Montana State, Idaho, the contenders, even Northern Colorado, Northern Arizona, like there's guys that
they have a guy at least. Northern Colorado's got Jack
a guy
Zybal
on the offensive line as one of the better guys on their team, and I couldn't even name an offensive lineman at Cal Poly. So that's bad. Scenario to be
certainly bad. Certainly bad.
Samuel Kim joining us inside the FCS, probably presented by Paradise Falls of Missoula. If you want to watch that Cal Poly game Friday night, head on down to Paradise Falls. So then the rest of the conference slate, do you agree with me? Are those the other two games to watch? Eastern Washington at NAU and Southern Utah at Montana?
Eastern Washington at NAU, most certainly. Southern Utah at Montana, most certainly. I mean, you think about Montana Tech, Utah Tech. Now, there is intrigue with UC Davis because I want to see the quarterback, but outside of seeing what the quarterback looks like, I don't think there's huge intrigue with UC Davis at Portland State. Now, there is intrigue there, but it's from a conference standpoint. Portland State's got a new head coach, Chris Fisk. I want to know what his team looks like, and I want to know how they play. So there's intrigue there with, okay, do they come out with a new mentality? Do they play differently? There's intrigue there, but outside of, them just being Portland State, there's not a ton of intrigue there. And then we restored at Northern Colorado. The only interest there is obviously Eric Kerr and what does his team play like? What do they look like? There's the interest. So with new head coaches, obviously there's interest, but outside of that, it's like, it doesn't really move the needle.
Is there anywhere that UC Davis at Portland State is a trap game?
Yeah. I mean, hey, maybe Chris Fisk got those boys going. We have no idea.
I mean, Chris Fisk was a really good head coach at the Division II level, and I don't necessarily think that automatically translates. But let's be frank, and I don't want to just dunk on Portland State, but Chris Fisk is coaching a D2 program.
Yes,
they just happen to be in the Big Sky Conference.
Yes,
but like Central Washington would have beaten Portland State the last couple of years.
If not beaten, it would have been a very competitive game.
Would have been a good game, right? Like I think that there was multiple guys at Central that would play at Portland State for sure.
Montana's got a D2 guy right now who's
Tyler King
to
is
start
going to
on
be
their
one of the starting defensive linemen, I think, on Saturday.
So
yeah, I just think it's an interesting trip. That's why I'm talking about what we're talking about in the segment one with the conference games being on the docket.
Yeah.
Like if this was a non-conference game between Portland State and UC Davis, first of all, it would be being played in Davis, no question about it. It's not being played in Hillsboro.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it is a conference game, Davis has got to make the trip. It's a weird trip. You're going to this weird place. There's going to be like 1,450 people in the stands.
Yeah.
Like there's only people on one. You played in that stadium. There's only people on one side.
Yeah.
There's not people on the other. There's this weird depth.
Bring your own juice. Bring your own juice.
Like the soccer field is over here, and it's like this weird sight line. Like it is. The whole thing is just weird. And then you have a coaching staff and a coach that who knows what the hell they're going to be doing. Yeah. And you have a whole bunch of new guys on the roster. So I don't know. I think UC Davis is going to be well prepared, well-oiled machine. Tim Plow is one of the best coaches in the country. I just think it's an interesting one.
They could walk into a trap, though. We have no idea.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, what about – so you mentioned that Eastern Washington NAU is only a 2.5-point spread. Are you surprised by that?
Absolutely. I mean, so here's my biggest thing with this, Colter, and I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me on this. I just don't know what because it's so funny. I brought this up to Sean Rainey, and he's like, yeah, when I see things like that, I get a little bit of nervous. Like, what do they know? And that's now he's got me thinking about it. Like, what does Sportsbet Montana know? What do they know? Why is it only 2.5 points? Because let's be real. Based on how good Northern Arizona was last year, and based on how good Eastern Washington was last year, what would you, if you were running the sportsbook, what would you put that spread at?
Man,
at least a touchdown, right? 6.5?
Yeah, like 5.5, 6.5.
Come on.
So much. This is. Here's the thing, though. Too, you got to remember this. So much of this is it's not necessarily what odds makers or people think.
It's where the money's at, right?
It's where the money's at, and also what they're trying to bait the public into doing.
Yeah.
So if you're the odds makers and you think it's going to be a 6.5, 7.5 point game, I think you started at 2.5 or 3.5 because the public is just going to hammer it, right?
But I don't think it's moved at all.
Well, it's only Tuesday though.
Fair.
People are going to start going to the machines because they're going to hear us talking about it. They're going to hear, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, you're going to hear all the different commentary. Like, when they see us and they see Rainey.
Okay, it's at 3.5. It's at 3.5 now.
That's what I mean. Like, when we're sitting here saying, man, I think that NAU should be a 9.5 point favorite. Why is it only 3.5? The bettors start going. They start looking it up on their apps. All of a sudden, I'm putting money on NAU. NAU is at home, blah, blah, blah. So I think a lot of times we see that a lot, too, with Grizz and Cat games, too, where the line will start skewed one way or the other because the money's going to move.
And then it comes back to the middle.
They know the money's going to move one way or the other way. Yeah. So what do you think gives Eastern a fighting chance, though? Like Eastern's a team we haven't talked about at all because they've just sort of been stuck in these doldrums of mediocrity. Is there any way Eastern's good this year?
I mean, they have talent. Let's be real. They do have talent. And, I mean, I feel like this has been the case for the last couple of years, but I feel like Coach Aaron Best is coaching for his job, maybe. I mean, but are they ever going to move on from him? I mean, I feel like we've said that the last couple of years, and it doesn't seem like that's the case actually in Cheney.
He was in a contract year, and they had an easy out, and then they signed him to a contract extension, and their new AD has just been like, we think that he's doing a good job. We're keeping him. So whatever that's worth.
It goes back to my point with Hawkins. I mean, if you have a guy that's better than average, you probably want to hang on to that guy because, more often than not, there's bad coaches in college football than there are good coaches.
Sure.
So that's been that. But
is Best better than average, though? I mean, since Eric Berrier walked out the door, they haven't had a winning record.
Dang, Colter. Chill out. My goodness.
I mean, I like Aaron Best. He's always been good to me. He's fun to have on the show. He's a good talker. And he has had success. I mean, he's been to 2 national championship games.
Yes.
He's gone on deep national playoff runs.
Yeah.
But since Eric Berrier, who was not his recruit, that was a Bill Baldwin recruit, that was a holdover, that got some extra time, walked out the door. I mean, that's the whole thing with Eastern is when they were really good, it's because they had good coaching, but they also had some of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
Now they have fine players, but having fine players is how you go 5-7. Having guys that are pretty good, big sky quarterbacks and big sky receivers and big sky running backs is how you go 5-7.
But there's coaches like Jason Eck who can have fine players and still make the playoffs.
Man, Eck had a lot of talent, though, man. Like, you look at some of those Idaho teams. I mean, that 22-23 run when they had Hayden Hatton and Jordan Dwyer and Giovanni McCoy and Anthony
and the
Woods.
young Mark Hamper.
I mean, dude, they had all FBS guys across the board.
You're right.
You know, I mean,
you're right.
Shoot, you could actually argue that they should have been better than what they were.
Yeah, right.
Man. I mean,
fair.
I mean, we got Hamper, Dwyer, and Hatton. Like, that is a nice receiving core, man. Yeah. That is like
best in the
that's
conference.
As good of a receiving core.
Best in the country.
I mean, right? That's as good as a receiving core since what? Sammy Akem, Samari Torre, and Mitch Roberts,
or Jerry in
Jerry Lou
McGee. Yeah.
Seriously though.
Wow. I think there's a strong chance that Eastern could win. I mean, Eastern could win. The reason the line is so short, is so small, is because Eastern could win. And I don't know, but they're going on the road, man. You're going on the road to play in the altitude. You know, you're already not in game playing shape, and then you have to get in game playing shape while also playing in 7,000 feet of altitude. I mean, man, it's a tall task. It's a tall task, and that's why I hammered -2.5. And you guys can check out Akem's locks because it's locked in at -2.5 on Akem's locks.
So we highlight those 3 games. What about the other Big Sky slates? Is there any other game that sticks out to you? I mean, obviously we talked about UC Davis, Portland State too. I mean, Montana State, Utah Tech. That should just be a business trip for the Cats, right? But the fact that they're going to a weird place in St. George, it's going to be hot. I mean, it's 103 is the high. It's supposed to be 96 degrees at kickoff. That stadium is also weird. I thought Caden Dowler, being Mr. Caden Dowler, you know, being the guy that remembers everything and is aware of everything and all that. He mentioned yesterday that the lighting is super weird, and I remember that. I remember when the Grizz were down there.
I never played there.
When the Grizz were down there in 23, it was like Clifton McDowell's coming out party.
Oh, yeah.
I remember it was a night game, and it was so weird because the field was so dark and our pictures were all weird.
Yeah.
It was
the
like
TV.
hard
I remember
to
the TV. I remember doing a breakdown on that game, and I remember the replay looking really weird as well because it was dark. Yeah. Like the field was dark.
Totally.
And I'm like, wait, they got the lights on, right?
Right. So that part is definitely weird for sure.
I would say Montana, Southern Utah. Because of the rushing game, I was looking at the numbers. I just started doing my preview right now, and Southern Utah rushed for about 200 yards a game last year. Over the last 2 years, they've rushed for over 200 yards a game. Montana has given up, I think, around maybe 140 on the ground over the last couple of seasons. So, you know, they've been pretty good at stopping the run. They haven't been perfect at stopping the run. Montana's allowed 142 yards per game the last 2 seasons, but Eric Sanders has allowed 190 last season. Well, in 2025, Montana allowed 142. In 2025, Eric Sanders' defense at Eastern Washington allowed 190. Southern Utah averages 201 and 205 and 25 and 24 respectively. I don't know. That's the biggest. That is the matchup right there for me is Montana's new look defensive line as well as new look defense versus that Southern Utah rushing offense. That's the matchup for me, and that's a game for me to pay attention to. I know people think it's Southern Utah and Montana gonna roll because it's a night game and Wild Grizz and all of those things may be true, but Southern Utah is no slouch, and I think they should be respected and they will earn some respect on Saturday night.
More on the Grizz and Southern Utah on the other side. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. Listen to Nuanez Now 102.9 ESPN Radio. Welcome back, 102.9 ESPN Radio. If you need a construction roll-off box for your construction project, Grizzly Disposal has them for you. Don't wait days or even weeks. Grizzly Disposal has them in stock. They can get them to you fast. Just give them a call, 406-541-7171, or visit GrizzlyDisposal.com. Grizzly Disposal, the only bears that should be in your garbage. Samuel Akem inside the FCS. Let's talk about the game that resides here in Missoula. Southern Utah coming to town. Here's the scoop from Sammy. All right, let's talk about this one in Missoula on Saturday then. Southern Utah comes to town, Washington Grizzlies Stadium. And you mentioned it, and Coach Kennedy talked about this. I thought that first of all, did you get a chance to watch the press conference on Monday?
I did not. Okay,
so, I mean, at the same time, it was refreshing because it was very positive and very engaging. And, I mean, I'm going to have to redo my Tuesday schedules for sure because usually – I would only pencil out like 20 minutes for the Grizz press conference because you drive down there, get your stuff set up, and it lasts for 12 minutes, and that was it. And
it's like an hour-long press conference.
This was like 30 minutes of them talking, which was cool. That's fun. But mostly it was just like, we believe in ourselves, we believe in our guys, we believe in the positivity of our team, we're a good team, blah, blah, blah. But the one sort of like nuts and bolts that BK did talk about was that he thought one of the matchups of the game was Southern Utah's ability to run the ball. And certainly losing Joshua Dye from a year ago, he was a leading rusher in the country in the FCS. That hurts you, but also I think if you have a guy rushing for 1,900 yards, he's talented, but you're also doing some good stuff in the run game to get him going too, right? And like you said, they ran the ball under Delane Fitzgerald well before Dye, and so you expect them to be able to run the ball after Dye as well. And I do think when we're talking about the question marks of the Grizz D, wouldn't you agree that probably the run defense is one of the biggest question marks?
Oh yeah, most certainly. I mean, to win championships, you have to be able to stop the run. That's one of the best things that 2023 Montana squad did, was stop the run and be able to control the line of scrimmage. And that's something that Montana struggled with, is controlling the line of scrimmage. Now, I know a lot of people think that the having 4 down, which isn't really a true 4 down, but having 4 men on the line of scrimmage and having a new look defense is going to automatically fix that. But, you got to execute it. And, I want to see what Eric Sanders' defense looks like live in action. So there's a lot of question marks for this Montana team. And Southern Utah, you talk about trap games. Montana's got the real trap game in the conference. Southern Utah is the real trap game, if we're being very real about everything.
I said this with my brother the other day, but I also think that there's an element there of knowing that Delane Fitzgerald is a good coach, given how Southern Utah's season went last year.
Yeah.
They started 1-5 with 4 of those losses being by a field goal, and they still finished 7-5. That, to me, shows a coach that could keep his team together. Because it's very easy to lose to NAU by a field goal and UC Davis. I think they lost. I think they ended up losing by like 14 to UC Davis. They're in the game.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose these close games against these good teams and then say, well, what do we have to play for? Let's pack it up. Let's fold up shop. Instead, they went out and won 6 in a row, including beating 3 ranked teams. They beat Tarleton State. They beat Abilene Christian. They lost to Tarleton State by a field goal too. But they beat Abilene Christian. They beat West Georgia when they were ranked. So, I mean, they're a team that has played well recently. I mean, they take a 6-game winning streak into this game on Saturday night.
Yeah, man. I mean, hey, I got respect for Southern Utah. I got respect for Southern Utah. I've seen what they've done in the UAC, and I'm of the belief that the UAC is the top 3 conference in FCS football right now. It's the MVFC, Big Sky, whoever you got 1 or 2, and the UAC is right there. They're very, very talented, and they practice in altitude. So coming to Montana won't be a necessarily shock for them. The only shock for them, for me, will be the stadium. And the crowd noise. But, I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's one that Montana certainly needs to have everything dotted, to have their T's dotted and their I's crossed, or their I's dotted and their T's crossed. But, I think it's honestly, although the Idaho Cal Poly game is on ESPN, I might say Southern Utah versus Montana might be the most exciting game. It's probably equal. It's probably even, honestly.
Samuel Akem inside the FCS each Tuesday here during the 4 o'clock hour on Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio. You can also check him out on the Samuel Akem Show on his YouTube channel, and we'll have plenty of cross-collaborations and social media clips from all that as well. But here it is. Next week we'll be breaking down games. Can't wait for it, man, but a good one today. Thanks so much for doing it.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate Samuel Akem for joining us. A fun Inside the FCS, previewing the college football season. That'll kind of be the new formula here. We'll be having Sammy on for 45 minutes to an hour each Tuesday to get things started off, talking FCS, Big Sky Conference, and then in the state of Montana with both Montana and Montana State storylines. So that's sort of the format. I'm looking forward to that moving forward. Hour 1 in the books, but before we take a break, got to give you some free stuff. We got a $25 gift card for you to Taglieri Deli. You can use it on the sandwiches, which are delicious and consistent, and they're so affordable. Now everything is so expensive, and Tag is actually not that expensive. All the sandwiches are like $11 or $12. But if you eat a whole sandwich, like, you are really full. Like, half a sandwich gets you there for sure. A sandwich is really like 1 3/4, if not 2 meals for most people. And I'm a hungry guy, so if it's a 2 meal for me, it's a 2 meal for you, I promise you. But you can also use the $25 gift card on the Italian-style goods that they have there, the wines, the pastas, the pasta sauces, the olive oils. Taglieri has locations in Missoula. Now a 3rd location in the UC Center that's opening soon. That's pretty cool to be on campus. But they also have locations at the corner of Broadway, or Beckwith and Higgins, as well as in the Sawmill District on Wyoming Street. And every Tuesday, we proudly give you $25 to Taglieri Deli. Tag Tuesday every Tuesday here on Nuanez Now. Hour 1 of the books, hour 2 coming at you. We will talk high school football. We'll hear from Taco and Caden Dowler about the impending coaching move at Billings West High School. We'll also hear from our good friend Pete Hamill, talking all things Class AA football preview. And we'll hear from Brett Began, Bobby Kennedy, and Kaylee Ayat, talking about the upcoming games for both the Bobcats and the Grizzlies. That's all coming your way. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. It's Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio.